I grew up in a family with parents and grandparents, and I got married in an even bigger family with in-laws and all. So mine is a big hum saath saath hai family, and I am a true believer in a family, in a joint family. But the generation next, they need their own space. So how do we maintain clear boundaries and yet have a space within the family?
You were born with a boundary. Your body is a boundary. Yeah, you were born in a family with a natural boundary of your body. And your mind also is a boundary. Nobody knows what is going on in your mind. So why do you need to create more boundaries? There are already boundaries. And people respect your boundaries. People don't encroach on you physically and mentally, even in a family. When you're a child, yes, your mother will cuddle you and carry you and pamper you and so on and so forth. But as you grow up, you maintain physical distances. You maintain your own space of your thought process. In the same family, a brother could be a doctor and another brother could be an architect. So they have a professional space, which is already different. That does not mean that you don't interconnect. What you are saying is, tu tera kaam kar, main mera kaam karti hu. That doesn't happen in a family. Then you are not a family. What is family? Family is a unit which coexists, where there will be sacrifices, where there will be cooperation, where there will be support. So what boundaries are you talking of? I'm not very clear about your concept of boundaries.
So it is like, I can say, we are the sandwiched generation, coping up with the in-laws as well as the children, the generation next. So how do we clear up that space given to the children and maintain our own peace of mind?
Every generation is a sandwich generation. Your father's generation was a sandwich generation as compared to his parents and his children. So your parents were also in a sandwich between the children and their parents. The same sandwich happens generation to generation. That doesn't change. What changes is the environment. What changes is the styles. Your grandfather probably wore a dhoti, your father wore a trousers, and your son is probably wearing shorts. So all the appearances and traditions and practices keep changing. The sandwich factor remains the same. So why do you feel compressed as a sandwich? I mean, the impression I'm getting is you are feeling compressed and you don't know, you feel you don't have maneuverability in relationship. Is that my interpretation? Is it correct?
It is like we are confused, like, to...
I like that word. You said confused. Confused means there is lack of clarity of mind. So now there is lack of clarity on how you should behave, how your seniors should behave, and how your juniors should behave. You think of how you should behave. Your seniors and your juniors are not in your control. So why are you thinking on their behalf? You see what is your role towards your seniors. You see what is your role towards your juniors. So where is the discomfort?
The discomfort comes when it's like a holiday. It's a Sunday, for example. And there is a rule that we should have a lunch together in the family. But the youngsters have their own plans and they're like, it's Sunday. We want our space. We also need to be with our friends. So how should we go about as parents addressing them?
The answer is in your question. You said there is a rule. Yeah. If there is a rule, then there must be a law. Because rules are framed to obey the law. So which law are you obeying? If it is a rule that Sunday everybody should sit together at one table and have lunch or dinner, what is the law that you are obeying? So it cannot be a rule. If it is a rule, then in all households, everybody on Sundays or holidays should sit together and have lunch and dinner at the family table. It's not a law. And if it is not a law, there can't be a rule. It can be an occasional request, it can be an occasional condition which is fulfilled as a matter of sacrifice. On some Sunday, the children sacrifice that, okay, I'm not going with my friends, I'm not going for a movie, I'm going to sit with the family and have food. But if you make it a rule, then there will be a rebellion. So that is also a law. Wherever there is a rule, there is ultimately going to be a rebellion.
So it has to be a balance.
It has to be a balance. The whole life is about balance. If I, as the grandfather, decide saying that everybody should sit at the table, one fine morning somebody is going to stand up and tell me, "Hey, बुड्ढे चुप बैठ. अभी हमारा दिन आ गया है, हमको जो करना है करने." So you must be very clear that in a family you can't have these authoritarian activities. Authority works even with your own kids. Authority works up to a certain age. After that age, you try to be authoritarian with your child, the child will rebel and say, "नहीं सुनना है मुझे." होता है ना?
Right.
This is a fact of life. So, as mature adults, we must understand how much to press and how much to give. Ebb and flow are laws of life. You can't have constant bharti or constant OT. Understand this law. Then life will be easy to regulate as a family. But when family becomes an imposition, then you are breaking the law. When you impose things on a family, you yourself are breaking the law of high tide and low tide.
Theoretically, I understand what you're saying. I am an advocate of joint family. But how do I create this balance in my family between the in-laws and the generation next?
Now you have come to secondary school without answering the primary school. You are an advocate of joint family. Did you cultivate your children in the joint family concept?
Yes.
No, you didn't. If you had, then they wouldn't have rebelled. Ultimately, it is upbringing. What is a culture? Culture is the upbringing of a particular society. If I belong to a particular culture, then I imbibe the teachings of that culture. Have you paid enough attention in cultivating that culture in your younger generation? Most of us have left the younger generation to imbibe and acquire cultures from their experiences elsewhere. It could be in school, it could be out in the society, it could be a mix of different societies. And they come with a variety of ideas which may not be in tune with the culture that is practiced by your family. So if you have allowed that upbringing, then you should also allow the freedom that comes with that upbringing. So what you're experiencing is this problem of not influencing the children in a particular culture, which again, you cannot actually influence children to that extent. You can imbibe or you can instill basic teachings into your child. Basic teachings as what is good, what is bad, what is lies, what is truth, what is good behavior, what is bad behavior, what is uncouth behavior, what is good language, what is bad language. All these things can be taught. But you are also exposing your child to the external forces of the society, the media today. Have you governed that? In a car, you have a child lock. Do you have a child lock on the exposure your child is subjected to? Now, if you have not been able to do that and you expect your child to copy what you like, it's not going to happen. So who has to change? Your child or you? Your child is already grown up.
सुनने में सब अच्छा लगता है. But when now my next generation comes up to me and says that, we want to stay in a nuclear family, that thought really torments me. So what will be my action? What should I go ahead with?
See, what you are saying is not actually new. If you go back to the early 70s or 80s, people habitually living in joint families. उधर भी दीवार बनती थी ना, उधर भी 2 चूल्हे लगते थे, घर एक रहता था. बट फादर की फैमिली अलग और अंकल की फैमिली अलग. अंकल की वाइफ अलग से खाना बना रही है, फादर की वाइफ, मेरी मदर, अलग से खाना बना रही है. एक घर में 2 चूल्हे लगते थे. जॉइंट फैमिली वॉज ऑलरेडी स्प्लिट. वो आपकी अंबुजा सीमेंट की फेमस ऐड है ना, बीच में दीवार. भैया ये दीवार क्यों है? जॉइंट फैमिली स्प्लिट, physically split by a divar. So this concept is not new. The concept that you are struggling with is how do I adjust and how do I give in somewhere? Because here you have to give in to your son's desire. He wants to separate. He wants to not build a wall inside your flat or your bungalow. He wants to have a different house in a different locality where he and his wife will be staying alone. And that is bothering you. Basically, you are not coming to terms with yourself. The botheration is not your son. The botheration is you yourself. The torment is in your mind. The storm is in your mind. The storm is not at all happening in the son's mind or the daughter-in-law's mind.
Right.
And what you need to achieve is the subsiding of the storm of your thoughts in your mind. Separation is a law of life. When my father died, I separated from him. Could I do anything about it? Nothing. I had to tolerate his death. I had to accept his death. So what are we really struggling about? We are struggling with imaginary problems in our mind. Separation तो होने वाला है. आज नहीं तो कल. आज marriage एक वजह हो गई. He got separated. Tomorrow my death will be the cause of separation. So separation has to be accepted. Why are you not accepting it? Each individual has his own choice of living his life the way he or she wants. If you respect each individual's right, then you should not be tormented. Yes, you like a joint family system. They have its pluses. They also have their minuses. Otherwise, joint family would never break if it was all hunky-dory and fine. Nuclear families have their pluses and they also have their minuses. So suppose I am in a nuclear family with 2 children who grow up and settle abroad. Now I am living with my wife in the dusk of my life, and suddenly I die. My wife is now alone. Children are abroad. What happens to my wife? Who will take care of her? In a joint family, she would have been absorbed. The dukh factor would have been reduced.
Right.
In a nuclear family, that's a disadvantage. Today you are seeing a lot of old age parents are not cared for. They don't know where to go. You will see a lot of old age homes springing up. So pluses and minuses are on both sides. It is your level of tolerance and acceptance which is the key.